Hello everyone, this is João Carrasqueira with NeoWin, and in this video we're going to talk about the Windows 10 May 2019 update. As you may know, Windows 10 has a semi-annual release cycle, so every 6 months or so there's a new update with some big new features, some significant changes, stuff like that. So it's not just a security update like the ones you get every month. And we're getting a new one in May, a little later than usual, but it's coming. And so there's a bunch of stuff here. In this video, we're not going to cover everything. There are some accessibility features and stuff related to input and languages, like your keyboard. We're not going to talk about those as deeply because there are features and languages that I not speak or use. So I can really show you that adequately. We have an accompanying article over at neowin.net. You can check the full list of changes there. I recommend you do that if you're interested in those particular news. Another thing I can't show you, but that's actually very relevant, is Windows Sandbox. So this feature is only available for Pro and Enterprise editions of Windows 10, that's why I can't show you. And what it does, it's a virtualized environment, like a virtual machine, except it relies only on the files you already have in your system. It basically clones your system into a virtualized, isolated environment with a clean slate, so everything you have there is not, everything you have installed is not there, it's just the system files. And it just clones that, and you can do that, and it's isolated, so you can test your software, stuff that might actually break your computer for whatever reason, be it viruses or whatever. So it's an isolated environment that you can use to test software, but you don't have to worry about the process of creating a virtual machine, a virtual hard drive, and all of that. It's all built into Windows. Like I said, I can show you, but it's a big new feature in this release. So advanced users will probably be very happy about that. So on to the more general user features. One of the big changes in the May 2019 update is the light theme. So you know that Windows 10 has always supported light and dark themes. That came all the way over from Windows Phone. And the thing about that is it only supported apps. So you would change to the light theme, and your settings app, all your apps would switch to the light theme, or to the dark theme if you prefer that one. But your taskbar, start menu, and action center would always be black or dark. So that's changed now. Microsoft has a new light theme that's actually complete. It affects the search, the taskbar, start menu, in addition to the apps, of course. So everything you do, everything in this section is now light, and that's pretty nice. It looks great. If you like the light theme now, it's good to know that it's more broad and it affects more things. There is one limitation with it though, is that, and it said you can't use your accent color in the start taskbar and action center components if you have the light theme enabled. I assume this is because the icons are dark, and so if you enable colors, because you can have some dark colors as your accent, it would be hard to see those icons. So what they make you do is, if you want to have a custom mode, so you can choose a light theme for your taskbar and dark for your apps and vice versa. You can, if you want to use the light theme for your apps, you can still do that. You just have to change the system theme, the Windows theme, to dark, and then you can enable color for it, and you get it pretty much like you used to have before. And this is the sort of the equivalent of having the dark theme enabled before this update. So you can do that now. And if you enable colors, there's another new change in this update, and it's that the jump lists are now colored as well. So you open this, you get these colors in two gradients, like in two tones, like you did when it was just black. And you also get more fluent design hints. You get the reveal lighting and all of that. It looks really nice. So it's a good change if you like to have your stuff colorful. I think it's a little too much. I'm just gonna turn that back off. Speaking of fluent design, there's a little change in the login screen. So now if you're using a PIN or password, or if you just are used to hitting enter before you scan your fingerprint or whatever, the background of the log screen will be blurred with that acrylic material. That's part of fluent design. I can't show you that because the screen recorder doesn't capture the lock screen very well. So moving on from that, the Action Center, in addition to the light theme, of course, there's some other changes, specifically in the quick actions. So now you can edit your quick actions right from the action center. You can just go into this edit mode, you drag things around directly in here. Before this update, you'd have to go into the settings app to do that. Now it all happens here. It doesn't take you to a different place. It's all done in the same spot. It's a little easier to do. Another change is that the brightness slider, of course you can see it change because it's not a real screen. But now the brightness slider is, a slider. It used to be a button where you just click and it would shift between 0, 25, 50, 75, 100% intensity. Now it's a slider like the one you have in the settings app, except now it's here. It's always here. You can just drag it. It gives you full control over the brightness. It's just much easier to do. So that's also a welcome change. Start also has a couple of welcome changes, of course. So the power and user menus now have fluent design a little more. You got that reveal lighting when you mouse over your options, and you also get icons for each option in the menu. You get everything as a little icon next to the options to make it easier to identify. Stuff that Microsoft has been doing with other parts of the OS, now it's here as well. Microsoft is also making it easier to clean up your start menu. So before you'd have to unpin each tile individually. If you want to remove a large group of tiles, it would be a little complicated. So now you can just unpin an entire group, it'll be gone. And you can also unpin folders. So if you have a folder with more than one tile, I'm just gonna drag it like so. Now it's a folder. You can also unpin the entire folder, it'll be gone. Everything is easier to clean up. You don't have to unpin one tile at a time. So, when you install Windows 10, there's a lot of clutter right off the bat. Now it's a lot easier to just get rid of all of that. And you can customize the start menu from the ground up with whatever you like best. There's also another small change in the power menu here. So when you have an update that's pending a restart, there will be an orange dot next to this. So you can just restart and update and do all of that in one go. And Start also has some under the hood updates. Now it's a separate process. So if you go to the task manager, it's separate from the rest of the shell. So if a crash is related to Start or the shell, now it's easier to identify where the problem is coming from. That's more of an advanced change, but it's welcome as well. Still, in this desktop environment, you may notice here that the Cortana and Search are not the same entity anymore. And that's because they're not. So now when you open up Search, it's just Search. You also got this new redesigned layout. You got your top apps here, recent activities down below, and you have these tabs here of sorts that basically just filter out your search results from the get-go. So usually you type something you're searching for, and the search experience would break down the results into documents, apps, and all of that. Now you can just filter those results from the get-go by switching to your preferred tab, and when you search, you'll only get those results. It's a little easier now. Now, having Cortana separate from search has a disadvantage for me personally, at least, and it's that you can no longer interact with Cortana using text. So what I do very often is I'd use Cortana for currency conversion. So I just write whatever I wanted to convert, 54 USD to euro, and it would give me the conversion right there. Now I can't do that because the search experience is just search inside your computer. So it doesn't have that intelligence anymore. So if you want to get that kind of results, you have to use your voice talk to Cortana. It's a little inconvenient. I really like the way it worked before. But now if you don't use Cortana, you can just get it out of the way. Or if you don't use search, you can just get that out of the way and just have Cortana. So it's it gives you a little more freedom to organize things the way you prefer. Still in the taskbar, you have a couple of changes here with the microphone icon. It's not new, but it does now tell you which apps are using your microphone right away. You can see that I'm recording my screen, so the screen recorded using my microphone. If it's more than one app, it'll just say how many, and you can click the icon and only give you a list. If you click it right now, there you go. It tells you which apps can use it, and you can scroll down to see which one is using it at this moment. And another change in icons is that now the internet icon, if you disconnect, it's a little different. It has this, it's supposed to be more global, so it indicates that you don't have Wi-Fi or LTE or Ethernet, you don't have any sort of connection to the internet. Instead of just having that Wi-Fi low icon that saying that it's not connected, now it just says that you're not connected to the internet at all. Small change, but it's more accurate. Now, to finish off this desktop environment section, let's call it that, we have the File Explorer, which has a small change to its icon. It's a little less flat in color now. It feels a little more, it has a little more of a gradient. It's not a huge change, but it does look a little more alive, I would say. And also a new default sorting option in downloads, because as you can see here, and I'm sure a lot of people have this problem, the files you download come with very random names. So if you have them sorted alphabetically, it really doesn't help you understand and find what you want to find. So now they're sorted by date by default. If you have a custom sorting option, that's not going to change, but if you're just using the default, now the default becomes by date, and they're grouped into these little date groups, so you have an idea of when you downloaded it, and that might be a little more helpful to help you find, what you want. And while we have the File Explorer option, I want to show you that raw files are now better supported by Windows 10. It's still in the early stages, but there's an extension in the Microsoft Store, and once you install that, Windows 10 can give you a little more information, more metadata for raw files. You have this information here. A lot of it's still missing, but you see stuff here, ISO, speed, focal length, stuff like that regarding to raw files. Now you can get that information. You can also open raw files in the Photos app. So you open that, it looks like that. It works fine, and you can also get more file info inside Photos itself. It's got all these details regarding date. All of that shows up here. So that's new. It does require an extension that we'll link in the description below if you need it. And now moving on from that desktop oriented section, we have a couple changes to the security settings. So if you go to Windows Security, there's some small changes in regards to the security settings. So now your protection history, well, that's not supposed to happen, is it? There we go. So if you go to your protection history, if you have anything there, I don't, you get a little more information about the threats that have been found, what you can do about them, the available actions. It's a little more informative now. And you also have a new protection setting here for tamper protection. This means that basically it's stopping other apps that are not Windows itself from messing with system files and system components that might, affect the security of your device. So some of these settings now will only be adjustable through the settings app, for example, so that you don't have third parties messing with your security settings. This is on by default. You could turn it off if you need that for some reason. Also, small change for Application Guard in Microsoft Edge. So if you're using a browser with Application Guard, you can choose whether or not you want to give permissions for the microphone and camera while in Application Guard mode. It's a separate setting from just having those permissions on while browsing normally. It's a small change. Still kind of in the security aspect of things, we have changes to the sign-in options and even the setup process. So if you go to your accounts, okay, there we go. Now the sign-in options have a completely redesigned page here. It's much easier to understand. You have a very clear idea of the options you have, whether it be face unlock or fingerprint. It's all available much more easily. It used to be a long list of options, so now it's a little easier to understand. And you also have a new option for physical security keys. So if you use physical security keys for other things, you can also use them to log in to Windows 10. It's easy to set up. It's right there. So a little push in making security a little more accessible for everyone. And in that regard, you also have Microsoft's push to move away from passwords in the traditional sense. So now you can set up, and I can show you that because it's for the initial Windows 10 setup, but you can set up Windows 10 from a clean install just using your phone number. You have to set up something for a passwordless setup by installing a mobile app. But once you do that, you can use your phone number, you get an activation code on your phone, and you log into Windows 10 using that code. You don't use your password at all during the process. And then you can just set up one of the sign-in options, so you never have to use your password on this computer. It's just safe through other methods, because Microsoft really doesn't like passwords anymore. So now we have that. It's a welcome change if you agree with Microsoft's vision for security. So moving away from security, we're going to discuss Windows Update, because there's some big changes here, and they're not all just for version 1903. Some of them are coming for previous versions of Windows 10, but they're coming around the same time. So this is a big change that Microsoft announced, because you may recall that the October 2018 update was a huge catastrophe for Microsoft. They skipped the release preview ring of the Insider program. They just shipped it to the general public without that phase of that testing phase, and it was a catastrophe. People were losing files after the upgrade. A lot of driver issues. A lot of things are happening. It's just terrible. So Microsoft is being a little more careful now, and it's giving people more choice in regards to updates. So when you check for updates now, you won't be forced to install feature updates anymore. You'll still get your security updates like you always do, but feature updates will be listed in a separate little list, and if you want to install them, you can just click the install button and you'll install that, but you won't be forced to do it alongside your security updates. So that's one step to reduce those problems with the Windows Update disrupting your workflow. If you don't even want that, you can pause updates for 35 days now, and this is regardless of what edition of Windows 10 you have. So this option has sort of always been available for Windows 10 Pro and higher, but now Windows 10 Home users also get those options. You can pause updates for 7 days at a time and up to 5 times in a row, so a total of 35 days. You won't be getting updates bothering you. So again, more freedom. Microsoft also has these intelligent active hours now. So active hours are not new. You could only set these active usage hours so that Windows would know when you're using your computer and wouldn't try to install updates during that period. And that was nice, but if you changed your schedule, the times at which you work, if you changed often, you'd have to change this manually, and that would be kind of a pain. So now Windows can do that automatically if you wanted to. You know, just adjust to your activity, and it won't install updates while you're using your computer. Again, making updates a little less stressful. And more so in line with that, it just keeps going. Microsoft has a lot of stuff in this regard. So now Windows 10 will also automatically roll back to a previous version if it detects that you're having problems with the new update. It'll just roll back automatically, put you back in a working environment, so you don't have those problems anymore. Still in line with that, there's a new feature called reserved storage. This is only available for new installs or under certain conditions. I'm not sure exactly. It's not enabled by default on this machine after I upgrade to the May 2019 update. But essentially, it saves a portion of your disk or of your drive. It'll just save that to ensure that updates go smoothly. So you don't save enough space for the updates themselves. You don't save enough space for any changes to optional features that you have enabled after those updates. So it may vary in size. They say it on average at about 7 gigabytes at first, but then it may change. If you have a lot of optional features enabled, it may require a little more space to make sure that those features still work after the update. That will vary, but again, all stuff to ensure that Windows updates are not as annoying as they used to be. And just rounding out this category here, we have a little change to troubleshooting. We all know how annoying troubleshooting in Windows can be. It's always a little hard to know what the problem even is. So now there's this recommended troubleshooting section here. If Windows knows that there's some sort of problem, it'll just tell you what the recommended troubleshooting tool is for the problems you have, and it'll do that for you. And it actually will run that troubleshooting automatically if it's a critical issue. If it's something that's very bad, it'll just troubleshoot that automatically for you, and it'll notify you that it did so, but it'll just try to fix those problems for you, so you don't have to. While we're in the settings app, there's some other changes here and there. So Focus Assist now is a new setting for any phone screen app. It used to be just for duplicating your display or playing a game. So now any app that you have in phone screen, if you're just watching a movie or something like that, Focus Assist will now hide your notifications so they're not annoying you while you're watching the movie or whatever it is you're doing in phone screen. And as before, you can turn off the notification that pops up for when Focus Assist is turned on automatically. Some people complain about that. I see that a lot on Twitter, that notifications are hidden, but then Windows 10 sends you a notification to tell you that it hides the notifications. So if you go into the settings here, you can disable that. So yeah, that's a new change in Focus Assist for phone screen apps. We also have new Ethernet settings that I can really show you because I'm connected over Wi-Fi. This computer doesn't even have an Ethernet port, so no luck there. And then you can now sync your clock manually. It's another change in the settings. Windows also always syncs its clock with the time server automatically. But if you want to do it manually for whatever reason, now you can just go here, you can click the Sync Now button and don't do that. And it also tells you the last time you synchronized the time with the time server. Just small changes here and there. You also have a new, it's not a new setting, but it's enabled by default now. Blurry apps, so there's a lot of apps that don't really scale well depending on the DPI of your screen and all of that. Windows will try to fix those automatically now. This used to be available, but you'd have to turn it on yourself. Now it's on by default. If you don't like it, you can obviously still turn it off. But in general, this should help apps look a little better. Moving away from settings a little bit. Again, with giving users a little more choice, Microsoft now lets you install more of the apps that come built in. So you have a lot of apps that come installed in Windows 10 and you couldn't really remove before, but now you can. So 3D Viewer, Mail and Calendar. Whoops, I did not mean to do that. You can uninstall a lot more system apps now, so you can get to a more clean version of Windows 10. If you don't use those apps, you can just uninstall more of them. There's a significant list. There's Paint 3D, Mail and Calendar, 3D Viewer. There's a lot more things that you can uninstall now, right off the bat. So that's also a nice change. Other changes are in the Notepad app. Small stuff. Now, when you type anything in a Notepad file, you'll now get this little asterisk up here next to the name of the file. It just tells you that there are unsaved changes. So that's a little change. This is the second time that Notepad is getting a meaningful update after a long time with not having any meaningful updates. So there's that. Also, Notepad now encodes in UTF-8 without a byte order mark by default instead of the ASCII. I'm not sure how you say that. Encoding this, so it's more interoperable with the web. So now you have that different encoding as well. And other improvements include new shortcuts for opening a new window. You can just press Ctrl-Shift-N to open a new window. Ctrl-Shift-S opens the Save As dialog, and you can press Ctrl-W to close a currently open window of Notepad. Just small improvements here and there. So there's that. There's some changes to the console. Again, I'm not really a user of the console, but if you open the console now, if you go into the properties here, you can you have a new terminal tab that lets you change a few more settings here. Terminal colors, a separate foreground, background. I'm not sure what all of these are because I don't use the console, but there's some welcome changes there. There's also some slight tweaks to the task manager. So now if you go into the details tab, You can see which apps that are running are DPI aware. So you have the per monitor v2, per monitor just completely DPI unaware. The task manager cannot tell you that. And also you can set a default tab for task manager, so whenever you open task manager, it'll just open it into that tab instead of always opening into the processes tab, which is the default behavior. And now there are some updates to apps in Windows 10. So your phone now lets you mirror your screen. If you have a compatible phone, you can mirror your screen to your computer. My phone is not compatible with this. I can't really showcase that, but you can see that it's there. You need phones like Galaxy S, Samsung Galaxy S8, S8 Plus. There's already some compatible phones. Not many though. And also it syncs your notifications now. So notifications from Android now sync to your PC. And the cool thing about that, not only do they sync, they also sync their state. So if you dismiss them on Android, they won't be dismissed on the Your Phone app. So it stays in sync. It makes things a little more convenient. So this is still in preview, but they're available now in this update. They might be available to previous versions of Windows 10, but as of right now, I tested it. It's not available in 1809. So it's new in the May update. You also have a big change for the Windows 10 game bar, which is not even really a game bar at all, unless you just consider this the game bar. Because now it's this really complex overlay. It's got a lot of things going on. You have your performance measurements, you have audio controls. Of course, you can still capture and all of that. And it even has Spotify now. So if you use Spotify, which I don't, you need to install the Spotify app. You link your account, and now you can listen to music and you can control that from this game bar overlay. It's a huge change to the way the game bar works, and it makes it a lot more capable. So if you're into all of this, this is great. And you can also create memes now. So I took a screenshot of a random thing here, but you can just overlay text on it, and it'll just create this sort of meme-like image test. And I don't know how to make memes, but you can make this, and you can share this to social networks. This might obviously be better with a certain game moment. That's the real objective here. So it has a lot of that. And while we're on topic of gaming, Microsoft said there's some gaming improvements in this release of Windows 10, but it didn't really say what they were. They were giving away State of Decay for free, letting people play State of Decay on Windows 10 for free to test that. It's been said that this is related to bringing Xbox titles directly to the PC. So there's that, but Microsoft hasn't really been very clear about that. So it's something to consider. Moving on from that, more app updates, small stuff. The Mail app now has a dark theme that you can turn on for this section. I probably need to enable dark theme system-wide for that to be available, because it's not showing up right now. So I'm just gonna change this to dark theme. And there we go. So now if you want, you can just toggle dark theme for even the body of the message. Everything just becomes dark theme. Before, you always have that white area blinding you if you're using this at night. Now you can make it all dark. This also applies to a few more elements of the calendar app. If you use that, the event creation page, I believe, it used to be white. Now it's also dark. And another thing that's changed, and that's a little, this is part of the system, so this is not coming to previous versions of Windows 10, unlike other app updates. So if you go to a modern app and you print, the print dialog looks a little different now as well. You have these icons here next to all the options, and it looks a little more streamlined that way. It also supports the light theme now, so if you're using light theme, this will be white. So it's just a small change there, but it is nice. Moving on to even more updates, now the emoji panel supports more things. So in addition to supporting emoji 12, which is the latest version of the standard, so you get new emoji like the mechanical leg. There's new stuff. A lot of them are regarding inclusivity, so there's mechanical stuff, mechanical legs, arms, and things like that. You also have support for cow emoji, so these little icons that I used to see all the time on the internet, now not so much. So now you have the access to this. You can just insert them much more quickly. And you can also insert symbols from the emoji panel. When you go here, you got all these symbols. They're sorted into tabs, just like emoji. So whatever you're looking for, you can access from here. It's only easier now. Now, finally, we have updates to accessibility. Like I said, I can't really showcase them very much because I don't use all these features. But if you use narrator, there's a new app called the Narrator Home, and it's basically it's a page for setting up the narrator. It lets you access a lot of settings. There's a bunch of new things, more verbosity options, stuff like that. So there's that. And there's also more accessibility settings in the cursors option. So now you can have more colors for the cursor. You can make it pink, orange, and you can also change the size. You can make it huge, you can make it small. So there's some small tweaks to accessibility that also make it easier for people who may have other problems using the system. So all in all, that's everything in this update. It's a lot of stuff. There really is a lot of things related to accessibility. So if you're interested in those, I recommend you read the article to learn a little more about what's new for accessibility in Windows 10 and with this update. But aside from that, that's all. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one.